I'm here with Corey Diaz, CEO of Anfield Energy. Corey, welcome. Good to see you today.
Thanks for having me.
Could you, to start us off, take us through the investment case for Anfield Energy and give us a sense of the importance of the Shooterine mill and how you came to acquire this and its significance in terms of its scarcity value?
Sure. So, Anfield is essentially a U.S. story. We're a near-term producer of uranium and vanadium in the U.S. Our key asset is the Shooterine Canyon Mill, which we acquired back in 2015 from Uranium One. It's one of only 3 licensed permanent constructed conventional mills in the U.S. The other 2 owners of mills in the U.S. are UEC, a multi-billion-dollar company, and Energy Fuels, a billion-dollar company. Our plan is to move that asset forward in the next 2 years to commence production. We have submitted an application for restart of the mill with the state of Utah. We have a license. It's just about upgrading that license from its current standby status to operational. We're actually looking to expand the throughput at the mill from 750 tons per day to 1,000 tons per day. And we're also looking to increase production capacity from 1 million pounds per year to 3 million pounds per year. We did put out a PEA back in 2023, which incorporated the Shooterine Canyon Mill and our 2 main mines, Slick Rock in Colorado and Velvet Wood. Those 2 mines combined with the mill returned a pre-tax NPV of about $238 million US.
I mean, maybe we could talk about that 2-year to recommissioning the mill and give us a sense of like what's required in capex terms. You've just recently completed a significant financing. Maybe you could talk a bit about the details there in terms of the equity and debt components that are involved. But I'd be interested to know what that process looks like, what the hurdles are to get to that point, and what investors should be watching in terms of measuring progress and towards achieving that point.
Sure. So based on our PEA, the cost to refurbish the mill is roughly $65 million. That also includes adding a vanadium circuit to the mill because we have a lot of vanadium-rich mines. In terms of the financing that we just completed with UEC, UEC is now a significant shareholder, about 18% of our shares. We've had a relationship with UEC for a number of years. And we also have a credit facility that was expanded, held by Extract Capital. Both parties are very keen to see us advance the mill to production given the scarcity value of the mill. One other thing that we're looking to do as part of that process is actually list on the NASDAQ. And so that will provide us with access to larger pools of capital and certainly should facilitate advancing the mill to production in the next couple of years.
And that relationship with UEC, when you see that disparity in having such a significant shareholder, what's your sense of their longer-term strategic thoughts on that? As one of, they have one of the 3 mills, they have a foot in a finger in the Anfield pie, as it were. What are your thoughts in terms of their strategic intentions, I guess, with that? Do you have a sense of how they're thinking longer term?
I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of UEC, but my view is that UEC is an ISR producer. We're a hard rock producer. We're a company that can absorb the cost and the cost of capex in order to move the asset forward. And UEC essentially gets the benefit of having access to a hard rock facility without having to own it and someone else running it. It also speaks to the strategic importance of having the relationship insofar as UEC also holds hard rock assets, which it could potentially end up in a company like Anfield, and you could realize the value of those assets within our portfolio as opposed to sitting in UEC's portfolio, which doesn't really have a path to
right. And when you look at the broader competitive landscape, do you see a broad mill expansion across the U.S., or is it because of the historic permitting challenges? The scarcity value is going to be a persistent feature of the industry, do you think?
I think in the near term it'll be persistent. If you look at all of the licensed or soon to be licensed or proposed production capacity in the U.S., it represents less than 60% of the requirements in the U.S. So assuming everyone can hit the 100% of production capacity, which is a challenge, there's not enough production capacity available for the current needs in the U.S. And so I would think that at some point there will be an expansion, probably some loosening of regulations in order to facilitate the build out of more capacity. But I think in the near term it's going to be a challenge because it's not just about the capacity, it's also finding the pounds to put through those facilities. So I think that everything that we can produce can certainly be absorbed in the market, which is one of the appealing things of being in the U.S. market.
Do you have longer-term strategic ambitions that way, or are you keeping it tight? I mean, I guess you've got enough on your plate right now.
Well, like never say never. We're always looking, at opportunities, in different, different parts of the U.S. And it all depends on distance, right? Our pounds that we have today, certainly within a 200-mile radius, makes sense to send to our mill. But potentially down the road, it might make sense to create another hub where there are spokes that would be closer to a secondary processing facility.
Maybe we could just touch on velvet wood and slick rock. You mentioned them at the outset, but slick rock's interesting because, again, it speaks to your relationship with UEC, acquired via an asset swap. Velvet wood, different. Maybe you could just cover those assets so we have a sense of the totality of Anfield.
Sure. So we acquired Shooting Canyon Mill and Velvet Wood together back in 2015 from Uranium One. There were a few other smaller assets which were also included, but they're all hard rock assets. The secondary acquisition we did with Uranium One in 2016 included a lot of ISR properties in Wyoming. And those properties, along with those properties, we did sign an agreement with Uranium One to use its existing facility in Wyoming for processing and resin capture. And so, when we continue to move forward and when UEC decided to buy the Wyoming assets of Uranium One, we saw there was an opportunity for us to, join into that transaction in a way that would allow us to focus more on our assets, our hard rock assets, while providing UEC with an opportunity to expand its ISR portfolio. So it was a bit of a win-win on both sides. So that was a great way for us to kind of start that relationship and build that relationship. And we've had many discussions over the years with UEC with regard to the other hard rock assets within its portfolio. And so in terms of, I guess the other part of the swap with UEC, we did a transaction in 2018 with a company called Cotter Corporation, which is owned by General Atomics, a weapons defense manufacturer out of San Diego. This asset sits right next to the processing facility of Uranium One in Wyoming, and this was an asset which was heavily coveted by a number of parties. And we started the conversation with UEC around this asset. So that was an asset which is very advanced and could get into production very quickly. So I think it's probably a key asset within the UEC portfolio today.
So maybe we could finish up just with near-term 2025. What should investors be focusing on? I know we've got this 2-year kind of pathway to commissioning, but for the Shooting Canyon Mill. But near-term, 6-8 months out, where should we be looking for news flow and measuring your progress?
Sure. So I think the key catalyst this year is the NASDAQ listing. We're planning to go to the NASDAQs by end of June, early July, depending on how quickly we can get through the application process. We've been working on the application for a number of weeks now, including working with our auditors to make sure that the audits meet the standard required by the SEC. We've worked with our law firm to talk about or to deal with the 20F application that needs to go in alongside those financials. So we've been doing a number of different things so far. We're actually having a shareholder meeting in about a month in order to address a potential rollback of shares in order to facilitate the right price in order to qualify for the NASDAQ. So there are a number of things surrounding the idea of listing on NASDAQ. We're also moving some of the mines forward. So, for example, we should expect the plan of operations for Velvet Wood in the next few months, after which we'll be looking for a large mine permit. The idea is to have the mines available for mining about 6 months ahead of the time that the mill comes on, so we have first feed available very quickly. Slick Rock, we just finished a verification drill program at the end of last year. The potential is there for us to move some of the resource from inferred to indicated, and then look to put a plan of operations in place there. And then later on, probably into early 2026, we'll be looking for a large mine permit for that property. So once again, the idea is to have the mines available ahead of the time when we've got the mill, ready for taking the feed in. So we're also looking to see some advancement on the application with the state of Utah. The state has been doing its review of the application for, probably about 4 or 5 months now. There'll be some requests for further information going back and forth, but hopefully by the end of the year we'll have advanced that significantly, and we'll be able to do a bit of work at the mill, some pre-construction work, some demolition work, in order to facilitate, the reconstruction of the mill once we've got the license in hand.
So the plate is full.
Yes. Yeah, we've got lots to do, and like, it's an exciting time. I think for us, want to get too much into what's happening in the U.S. itself, but I think tariffs is an interesting position. I think as a Canadian, it's obviously challenging, but as a company that has U.S. assets, we think that there'll be a bifurcation of pricing in the market for uranium. There'll be a U.S. price and then a non-U.S. price, given the way if the tariffs do end up sticking. So having material within the U.S. will be advantageous.
Yeah.
And certainly be much more appealing to domestic users of uranium.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting impact of what's going on.
Yeah.
Interesting, maybe the wrong word, but.
I think you can take that many ways. I agree, though. I think it's, if you're just looking at it from that very kind of myopic view, then there's an advantage, but certainly, tariffs is another discussion to have.
Well, thank you very much for that update. I mean, there's obviously a lot going on at Anfield, and I look forward to following it.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Corey Diaz, CEO of Anfield Energy. Anfield trades on the TSXV as AEC.